Hey, what's going on, guys? In this video I show you the process that I use to build this reclaimed wood and tree table. Hope you enjoy. I start every project by hitting up each board with the belt sander, and this will just get the top layer of dirt off, just enough to leave some character. Once clean, the boards go to the miter saw. At this point, I do a rough cut, basically cut off the ends, anything that might be rotted or not square, and then I cut them to roughly an inch longer than what the final dimension's going to need to be. Join. After it's been joined, you got a nice straight edge. I take it over to the table saw and cut down to their final width. Plane measure, plane measure. So now that I've got them down to their final width and their final thickness, it's back to the miter saw to cut them to their final length. So at this point is one of the most important parts of the process. I pick out which sides or which legs go to the front of the piece, which sides are on the back. And then I got to mark out the position of the mortises and the tapers. There's 2 tapers on each leg, and I got to make sure they're going in the right direction so I don't mess up the cut later on. Mortise, cut a mortise, cut another mortise, move the board down, get another mortise, big long mortise, lots and lots of square holes. This just saves a whole lot of time and energy than having to go back and chisel out the round holes if you're doing a drill press. It's a nice tool to have if you don't have one. Now that the mortises are cut, it's time to do the other part of the equation, the tenons. Now, again, I got a nice handy tool. You don't necessarily need it to do tenons, but it makes life a lot easier. And it's this tenoning jig. So now I got to go back and clean out the mortises and mark and measure the placement of each shoulder on the tenons, which I prefer to do on the bandsaw. Just makes it nice and neat. Now the tenons are cut to size, it's just a matter of getting a good fit on there. Usually I like to sneak up on them, so to speak, and ensure a nice tight fit in those joints. Now that the mortise and tenons are cut, fit perfectly, it's time to put on the tapers on the legs. Tapers really just add a little style to the design, make the legs look a little more sleek and sexy. Now all the major components are cut, fit, joined together. It's time to sand them. typically what I do with most all my pieces is sand them down with an 80 grit, a 120 or 150 grit, and then finish it up with a 220 to make it nice and smooth. Now that the pieces are sanded, it's time to glue them together. I always start by gluing the short sides together first, and I use a couple of claws just to make sure that when you go to put pressure on it, they don't want to bend. It stays nice, flat, and true. After setting up overnight, the two short sides are ready to be glued together using the long rails.
Hello, my fellow Americans. I'm here today representing a group called Cancer. Cigars are not carcinogenic. Grrr. Now, I'm here today to dispel the long-standing rumors that smoking cigars is bad for you. The fact of the matter is, that rumor was started by the Russians a long time ago during the Cold War to bring down the American tobacco industry. The truth about smoking cigars is, and this is according to science, not me, but scientists in a lab somewhere doing science stuff, that smoking cigars is actually good for you. These scientists have shown that smoking cigars can raise your testosterone levels. Now, this means we're going to grow more facial hair, we're going to be better lovers to our women, and they also say that the aroma from cigars can attract potential lovers. Women can smell just a single puff from 3 miles away, okay? And this lingers on for 3, 4, sometimes 5 days. So, the benefits are there, okay? So next time someone tells you you need to stop smoking cigars, you just look them in the eye, take a big old puff of your cigar, and tell them to shut your mouth, you commie-loving Russian bastard, and keep doing American stuff, man stuff.
While the base is gluing up in the clamps, it's time to start on the tabletop. Again, starting off by cleaning the boards with a lander. Whenever I build a top, a tabletop, a vanity top, I always pick boards where I'm going to end up being lighter than what I actually need to be. And I sneak up on the dimension, basically trim off little bits here, little bits there on each side until I get the perfect size. Now, there's a lot of different schools of thought on how to attach or join tabletop boards together. I use biscuits. It's the tried and true method. Works perfect for me. So just the same as when I glue the sides, I use cauls to make sure that the tabletop is going to stay flat and true. I'm not going to have any major warps or anything like that once the glue is dry. After sitting in the clamps for a few hours, it's time to take it over and clean off all the squeeze out, the glue, and then hand plane and hand sand any high marks or low marks. Get a nice level surface. Now just cut off the ugly ends and get it to its final dimension. The design of this piece also calls for essentially a backsplash, for lack of a better term. And this is where I'm cutting the back to the size of the tabletop, cutting the angles, and sanding them smooth. Sand, 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 sand. On the wider surfaces like tabletops, I like using the orbital sander. It gives a nice finish. Then on the smaller pieces, it's just easier to use a quarter sheet palm sander. Now it's just a matter of gluing and screwing to attach the backsplash to the tabletop. At this point, the tops are off the base, and it's time to start building the lower shelf. Same system as before: cut the width, cut the thickness, and sneak up on until you get a nice tight fit. So you got to notch out the corners on this just a little bit. A matter of getting them right is just a matter of marking, cutting on the bezel, and then trimming away until you get a nice tight fit. Now it's time to sand them, take them down to 220, and then nail them in place. The final component of the entry table is the drawer. Here I'm installing a couple of boards that will allow me to mount the drawer slides onto the table. So I got a little lucky. I found a piece of 3/4 plywood that was already cut to my width. So I just cut them to length and started making the drawer boxes. With the drawer boxes, I like to use what's called a lock joint, and it's not as sexy as, say, a dovetail, but it's just as strong and doesn't take nearly as long to get fitted and get just right. Now that all the parts of the drawer box are cut, it's time to put it all together, glue it, put some brad nails in, and make sure it fits into the frame. Now that I know that the box fits in the space it's to, it's a matter of measuring and placing the slides on the drawer box. Now it's time to make the drawer front. I picked out a board that has a lot of character that's going to help it stand out in any room. Once I have my placement and my gaps just right, I clamp it on so that I can screw it onto the door box. Now it's time to measure and install the hardware, the drawer pulls. I got to do math, and then I like to hold it up and look before I drill holes to make sure everything looks like it's in the right spot. Now that the drawer pulls are in, I take the face back off and put on a edge painting to hide the ugly sides of the plywood box. I have to make a few slots so I can attach the top later on. I'm just spraying on a walnut tinted oil. After the Danish oil had time to dry, I start applying a clear coat of polyurethane. You have to make sure you sand in between each coat and make sure you clean off all the old dust. That's it. That's the process. I hope you guys liked it. Like, comment, share. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll hit you up. And until next time, keep on cutting.